Only after 2 weeks of ignoring those tiny frustrations did I realize my mind was running on autopilot like background noise I couldn't shut off.
That's actually a classic sign of mental overload. Studies show that when people suppress minor disappointments, their cortisol levels can spike over time, even if each incident seems trivial in isolation.
But how do you even notice when it's happening? Sometimes I just feel tired, but I can't tell if it's from stress or just a bad night's sleep.
Here's the tricky part. The transition from occasional tiredness to ongoing exhaustion is so gradual, most people miss it. It's not a single event, it's the pattern that forms when you keep pushing aside those emotional signals.
And the internal self-critique makes it worse. Research from the American Psychological Association found that people who habitually compare themselves to others are more likely to experience chronic fatigue because they rarely acknowledge their own limits.
So, is there a way to break that cycle before it gets too heavy? Like, something you can actually do when you notice those first signs?
Absolutely. The first step is to recognize and name those small stresses as they happen. Even a quick mental check-in can interrupt the buildup. Here's the takeaway. Small acts of acknowledgement can prevent a mountain of exhaustion later. Only after 2 iterations of pushing myself past midnight did I realize what I called weakness was actually just being overloaded. The line between exhaustion and failure gets blurry when you're always measuring yourself against impossible standards.
Can you explain that in more detail? Because I see so many people, especially online, who seem to thrive on this constant hustle, like, if you're not tired, you're not trying hard enough. Where does that pressure even start?
It's everywhere. Social media, workplace culture, even family expectations. There's a 2022 survey from the American Psychological Association showing 79% of adults report stress from trying to meet others' expectations, not just their own.
I partly agree, but sometimes I wonder if we're also doing it to ourselves. Like, I'll compare my progress to someone else's highlight reel, and suddenly my own achievements feel tiny, even if I was proud of them 5 minutes ago.
That's so true. And the cost is hidden, right? You keep pretending you're okay, but inside, you're running on empty. I read somewhere that pretending to be fine all the time can actually make burnout worse because you never give yourself permission to rest.
Here's the takeaway. Redefining strength means allowing ourselves to acknowledge limits, not just pushing through them. If we keep equating fatigue with weakness, we'll never break the cycle of overload. What surprised me most was realizing how many people describe feeling utterly drained, even when nothing dramatic has happened to them. This is the invisible weight, and on this episode, we're digging into why so many of us carry a fatigue that's hard to name but impossible to ignore.
It's fascinating and a little unsettling how this exhaustion builds up. For example, a 2022 survey found that over 60% of adults reported feeling persistently tired despite getting enough sleep. That suggests it's not just about rest, but something deeper, like the constant mental juggling we do.
But if you can't point to a single cause, how do you even start to explain it to someone else? Sometimes I wonder if people just assume you're being dramatic, when really, it's this slow, heavy feeling that never quite goes away.
Here's the thing. Most of these pressures are invisible. You might look fine on the outside, but inside, you're carrying 1,000 tiny worries, deadlines, expectations, even just the pressure to always be okay. That's a load that adds up, even if no one else sees it.
Modern life definitely amplifies it. We're constantly connected, always reachable, and there's this subtle competition to be productive all the time. Psychologists call it chronic stress accumulation, and it's linked to higher rates of burnout and even physical health problems.
So, is it possible that we just don't notice how tired we are until we hit a wall? Like, maybe we're so used to pushing through that we ignore the signs until it's overwhelming.
Exactly. The takeaway. Unseen exhaustion is real, and it's time we start naming it because only then can we do something about it. Only after 2 job changes and a move across the country did I realize the exhaustion wasn't leaving, it was following me. The real culprit was the constant critical chatter in my own head.
That's so common. Studies show that even after major life changes, about 60% of people report their baseline satisfaction barely shifts. It's like the inner narrative acts as a filter, coloring every new experience.
But how do you even notice that voice? Sometimes it just feels like reality. not a story you're telling yourself.
Here's the takeaway. The first step is catching yourself in the act, pausing when that inner critic pipes up. If you can spot the pattern, you can start to question whether it's actually true or just a habit.
And resilience seems to hinge on that awareness. There's research linking self-compassion practices to lower burnout rates, even in high-stress professions. It's not about ignoring problems, but changing the tone of your self-talk.
So, is it enough to just repeat positive affirmations, or does it need something deeper?
Affirmations can help, but only if they're believable. Sometimes it's more effective to get curious about the voice, ask where it came from, or what it's trying to protect you from. That's when real shifts start to happen. Only after 2 promotions did I realize that the sense of calm I was chasing never actually arrived. The more I achieved, the more restless I felt, almost as if the finish line kept moving.
That's such a common trap. Studies show that even after major life upgrades like a new job or home, people's baseline stress barely shifts. It's like we expect external changes to fix internal turbulence, but the data just doesn't support that.
But what if someone genuinely believes that fixing their circumstances will bring peace? Isn't it reasonable to want fewer problems before trying to feel calm?
It's tempting, but here's the takeaway. Postponing peace until life is perfect means you'll always be waiting. There's always another challenge, another thing to fix.
And there's a difference between avoidance and conscious confrontation. Avoidance is like turning down the volume on discomfort, but it never actually resolves what's underneath. Self-awareness, on the other hand, lets you see the pattern and start to shift it.
So, is it about accepting whatever's happening inside, even if it's messy or uncomfortable? That sounds hard, but maybe that's where real peace starts.
Exactly. The transformative part is facing what's inside, not running from it. That's where the lasting shift happens. Only after 2 weeks of trying to meditate in a noisy apartment did I realize peace isn't about shutting out the world, but about choosing what you let in. That's the core of reclaiming your life. It starts with self-acceptance and the courage to set boundaries, even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
That discomfort is real. Research shows that people who practice saying no even gently report a 30% reduction in daily stress within a month. It's not just about refusing requests, but about honoring your own limits without guilt. Have you found any techniques that make that process easier?
Sometimes I write down what I actually want, just for myself. It helps me notice when I'm saying yes out of habit, not because it's right for me. And if I slip up, I try to remind myself that imperfection is part of being human, not a failure.
Exactly. Progress isn't about dramatic changes, it's about daily choices. Even pausing for a moment before responding can help you act from your authentic self, not just react to pressure.
And focusing on the present moment is key. Studies suggest that people who anchor themselves in small, mindful actions, like a deep breath or a short walk, are more likely to feel grounded, even when life gets chaotic.
If you feel lost, it's okay to start small. One gentle step, like turning off notifications for an hour, can make a difference. You don't have to fix everything at once.
Here's the takeaway. Peace is a daily decision, not a destination. Start with self-acceptance, practice compassionate boundaries, and focus on what you can do right now. Even the smallest step counts. Thanks for listening. May your next choice bring you a little closer to your own peace. If you found this helpful, share it with someone who needs a gentle reminder today.